The Coping with COVID-19 webinar series was a knowledge dissemination effort by Team MaGC to help businesses understand the changes that the pandemic has brought about and how they can adapt to them. This video gives the highlights of the 5 webinars conducted between May and June 2020, condensing 6 hours worth content in 20 minutes.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar on coping with COVID-19, the first in the CwC series.
Welcome all of you. Thanks for being here. We are here to take stock and try to understand what needs to be done. What we are trying to do is a beginning of a thought process. This is a session for thinking and evolving solutions, impact on organizations. What is the broad thinking right now? We were not able to predict all these things because we were in the knowledge realm. We have not gone to the next realm of what is called as wisdom. We have to go beyond logic to understand crisis. We have to go beyond logic to create organizations of excellence, and for which the only approach is through wisdom. THIS, trust, honesty, integrity, simplicity. This is the approach. Literally, this is the approach by which we are going to approach our management systems to get what we want. These will be the mantras: profitability to prosperity, value add to values add, and performance to sustainability. And how do we achieve? We achieve through values-based management. Before we go further, my colleague wants to have a poll.
I'm sharing the results, some interesting results.
So as you see on the screen, we have very interesting. Getting new business has got 28% weightage, and the next one is cash crunch. So operations and production, they have taken, so 22%, and I think the next 18% is marketing. And the second one, so 40% is leader with systems, and 25% each of leader with brain and leader with heart.
So one of the questions is, what are the new type of avenues for professional firms that are coming up, consulting firms or CA firms? So the other question was on, do we see any particular industry or industry segments really doing well in this post-COVID scenario? And a related question is also that for SMEs, would we see a lot of mergers and winding up of SMEs or merging into larger companies? One question which is kind of seems to be the most popular question is on the work from home option. That initially we have seen reports of people saying that productivity has increased. So will this sustain, or rather how to sustain it?
Very interesting. We will see how this is going to get discussed in this and the forthcoming seminar.
Coping with COVID-19 policy aspect.
Today we are going to talk about policy, and particularly how COVID has impacted. Slow policy changes can kill organizations. Now, how does a typical policy change take place? Does it happen only at the top management level? How does it work? We have what is called as policy impact analysis. Policy impact analysis is nothing but what are all policies I must have and to what extent I must have, and which is very important, which is the first one I have to take. So you may have a list of 5 or 6 policies which we already have, which you need to modify. You don't have, I need to add. So you are very clear. This is what you need to do before you start your impact assessment. So once you are ready with this, what do? You prepare a simple metric. You put the numbers: policy required, work from home, incentive policy, info security policy. And then what is the value of that policy to you? What is very, very important? So you do a VED analysis: vital, essential, desirable. I know the priority, which is what I need to work. Now we come to organizational restructuring. So the organization will look something like this. Your traditional flat organization will not help. And how is it going to be structured? This is a circular structure organization. This will completely satisfy the workplace workflow, work culture. Workplace workflow, whatever stress it has created will get completely transformed due to the structure and the intelligent, smart policy changes you are making. Because structural change and policy change together will help you to improve your processes. Now that we have done some work, I hand it over to Praveena who will take the polls. So, I mean, it has almost been 50-50, 53 and 47. Do you think
Yes.
organizations have policies for all the required functions? Very nice. So, if it is there, it is good. And the policy impact assessment, so almost 95% of the people found, if I say that it is useful. Circular organization structure, very interesting to see the normal curve emerging there. If you turn that graph, you'll see a beautiful normal curve. So many people, so 37 plus 31 plus 13, they have been very positive about it. That's fine.
So one very interesting question coming up is a related thing is, given this time of uncertainty that things are changing so dynamically and probably we have still not hit the bottom yet, how often should policies change, and rather what should be the policy for the change of policy? So the other question is on the interaction between an organization policy and the policy by the government. So for things like migrant labor or labor laws for that matter generally, should we wait for the government to come out with its policies, or should the organization go ahead and chart its own policies and then fine tune it? It's all the more relevant since this question is coming from outside India. So one of the participants is asking whether companies and government in India is yet to realize the complete impact of this. Like they say, we have gone back by 5 years. Government debt is going to be 3 times of GDP very soon. So has the complete impact sunk in, and are organizations prepared?
Coping with COVID-19, process aspects.
Now, policy is at a conceptual level. We said it talks about outcome. So today we are going to deal with processes. Processes would mean sub-processes, and sub-processes would imply activities. So for somebody who doesn't understand what we mean by process, it's a series of steps towards a planned end. You always have a start, you always have an end, and steps in between, resulting in something good. We are going to do 2 things today. One is called a proximity analysis, and another one is what we call as process change matrix. Simple frameworks as usual, but they go a long way in identifying those sensitive processes that you need to touch upon. Therefore, proximity analysis. What is proximity? Nearness. Nearness to what? Nearness to what we saw just now, delivery touch points. You have identified few processes based on proximity to revenue or cash or control or resources. Having identified, what do? I do what is called as a process change matrix. What is the process change matrix? I need to understand what changes I need to make in these processes. This is the way someone approaches the change that have to be done to the processes that will undergo shorter or drastic changes.
So what I will be discussing would be 3 case studies, which will be common pain points which we are aware of, which SMEs have, continuing our theme of more focusing on SMEs. So the first one being payment processing. Now we will move to another case where most of the organizations need to do deliveries, and now there are several complications with respect to physical deliveries. Third one is on bank reconciliation statement.
So what I'll try to do is present 3 case studies. Let's taking a step back to see how businesses in other industries manage to solve the disruptions in processes created due to COVID. So when I say disruptions or challenges, broadly bucketing, at least most of them fall into 3 buckets, which revolves around moving people and material around the place in the absence of physical contact, restrictions on specific people to access their critical infrastructure, whether it is hard infrastructure or their IT infrastructure, and the biggest question is how to reach the customer in this scenario. So the first case study is about what was done at the Bangalore International Airport. So case number 2, we moved to a completely different area, what was done in government. And one particular case which caught our eye and which we thought is relevant today is the initiative by the Treasuries Department of the state of Orissa. So the third case is with respect to reaching to the customer.
How does one implement these process changes? We will go for poll 1. Very nice. So most of the people have said it's very useful. We'll go to poll 2. Yeah, so it is interesting to find that the finance and accounts seem to be the function which requires a lot of process changes.
The first question which came up, I would like to address it to Dr. Murali. In the last webinar that was when relating to policy changes, you said policy changes need to guide process changes. Is this true in all cases? Will not process change also trigger policy changes? How can we think of process re-engineering when we have severe cash flow issues, particularly finance department is under cash crunch, and you are talking about technology and things like that? How do you think it's possible? Work from home employees may work, actually employees may end up working with another company also. There is some amount of risk in this. So how do you mitigate this?
With this, he is clear that the process is all right. And next, we are going to look at technology.
Coping with COVID-19, technology aspects.
Our intention today is to get across into technology aspects where we are calling technology an enabler and is part of payroll. We are bringing up a framework which will enable every organization, big or small, to understand where and how they need to have technological intervention. Here comes TM, Technology Impact Assessment Metrics. You can fine tune this, you can tinker with this, but conceptually, if you do not have this technology implementation assessment metrics, you will be spending time based on your vendors. Let us do this homework before calling the vendor.
What Pravina is going to now take us through is that not all IT investments or implementation need necessarily be complex and expensive exercises.
So here RPA, robotic process automation, is the ideal solution for it.
So moving on, if there is one common theme which has been running through all our CwC seminars, in the questions participants are asking, it is about work from home, WFH to be short. How do we do it? What are the security aspects? How do we ensure security and monitoring and all that? So again, Pravina has something to offer on that. And we've been telling that wait for the technology session, we'll cover that there. And Pravina is going to keep up her promise now. So where she's going to discuss some tips for individuals working from home as well as companies who are letting their people work from home.
What we will do is we will discuss some broad, security aspects around certain items. So just to answer the other question, Ashok's question on, how do I monitor my employees? Many people have asked us. So there are multiple surveillance apps and programs that are available. Having said that, we are all wisdom boss. So us being mindful business people, we should be careful because there are privacy issues surrounding use of surveillance in your employees' premises.
Great. I enjoy experimenting with new technology, 66%. And I know it is required, but I find it challenging. So 2/3 and 1/3, perfect. Technology change is not required in my line of work. I'm happy nobody is saying that. So we come to poll 2. It's almost 90+ % are feeling it useful and very useful.
How can I assess early on whether my technology investment is giving me desired returns so that I don't put too much money on the table and then start rushing up? Some of the SMEs like us, Les means one of those SMEs have raised this question, are forced to adopt ERP. The client says, the supplier says, the vendor says, go to an ERP on cloud, it's cheaper version. Whereas we are struggling to have proper policies and processes in place and looking for cost-cutting measures during this COVID-19 situation. What would be your advice to us? While we understand the necessity for technological intervention during this COVID-19 times, we have auditors who are very traditional. They want to insist on physical documents, seeing things physically, approving before any payment or anything can move out from the organization. So how do we handle such a situation? Do you think we should employ IT professionals in our company? Putting aside the legal ramification of monitoring employees' screen, wouldn't it be a setback on the morale of the employee?
Next, we will catch up on people. That is going to be our focus area
coping with COVID-19 people aspects.
Our intention is to bring to light how the wisdom boss, along with his aligned team, is capable of handling people. So when we get to people aspects, ultimately what do we want our people to do? We want our people to deliver. And while delivering, such guys should have dependability and linkages or connectivity. Leadership is known when ordinary people face extraordinary situations. The human resource impact analysis has two dimensions. One is the internal dimension, one is the external dimension. We have to start with the physical health of a person. Mental health is required. Attitude relating to life, attitude relating to work, attitude relating to leisure, and attitude relating to technology. Having done that, how do we address external issues? There are two aspects to external. One is called the connect, another one is called the adjustment. Phobias. The first phobia is technophobia. As you see on the icon, they hate technology. Second one, you might not have heard, but you would have experienced. Sophophobia. Sophophobia is, oh, please don't ask me to study anything. I can't learn anything new. I am already 40 years old. Third, paperwork phobia. Very interesting. I read some articles where there are a lot of people, they don't want to put down anything in writing. They'll not. Next, control phobia. How can you do control? What is control? I have a plan. I have to check whether everything is going as per plans. So what they do, they don't have plan at all. Everything is done as and when. And then social phobia. This is another very interesting thing. No, sir, I don't like, most of the time they are talking. No, I'm not asking you to go and waste your time. Are you understanding what is happening in your field? Unless you may get this phobia out, all that we discussed on human resource, how to development, they'll go completely out. How we have to catch up with this? One is we have to, as an organization, now I am shifting, individuals have this problem, we could help and find out where in a grade of 1 to 5 each of these phobias are there, and then we expose them. Second, there has to be a positive confrontation. The next one is, of course, training, all of us know, and then, of course, motivation. So we are going to need people who are with knowledge, methodology, and out-of-the-box thinking, or competent, skill, and innovative. We get into our first poll. Interesting. I never thought sophophobia will take 25%, fear of learning. Interesting to see that the changes are required in marketing. Oh, very interesting.
Very interesting.
Nice. And key learning from the crisis, be agile and open to change.
How to keep people motivated during and after COVID times? What is your take on that? Training and development, according to us, will undergo a major change. How do you see this capacity building happening post-COVID?
Thanks for watching. The full webinar recordings are available on our YouTube channel. Link in the description below. Follow us on our Facebook and LinkedIn pages for more content in the field of management consulting.